All right, boys. So today I have the task of talking about sleep without crashing my car. So this will be interesting. So I was kind of thinking of like, what would I want to kind of hear if I was, on this channel, and what I'd want to learn about. And something that I struggled with a lot, and I still struggle to this day, is like not finding the time to sleep, but just being really sleepy in the middle of the day and not necessarily being able to like be as productive as I could be, right? And because of that, I've gone through so many different like tips, tricks, and shit like that to kind of fix my sleepiness and stuff like that. And I wanted to share with you guys what worked for me. And I'm not going to give you some generic advice like, get 8 hours of sleep, because for some people that might not be possible, or for one reason or another. I think that's kind of the bare minimum, right? But even if let's go this way. Even if you're getting 8 hours of sleep and you're still sleepy, there's some things that you can kind of work on. Now, the number one reason and the number one thing I think a lot of people miss when they're feeling really tired is you got to realize, why are you tired? Why are you sleeping in the middle of the day, right? And the main thing for me, right, is sleep was a escape from the work that I had to do each day, right? So what do I mean? So at the start of the semester, while I was studying medicine, this is gonna get a little off, studying medicine, I had work and I was able to keep up with the work. But as the workload increased, the more I felt sleepy. And it wasn't necessarily because I wasn't getting enough sleep. It was because when I'm sleeping, I don't have to do the work. And my brain knew that. And because the work was hard, the work was not easy, and the work, took a lot out of me, my brain wanted to take the path of least resistance. Oh, I'm not gonna make that light. Path of least resistance. And because of that, I just go to sleep when I should be working, right? And until I fully understood that, hey, I'm going to sleep because, not necessarily because I'm tired, but because like I just don't want to do the work. I kept taking caffeine. I kept like trying to change up my schedule, and it never worked. But once I realized that was the main cause, because it was too hard for me, then the solution was pretty simple, right? I make the work easier, right? You might be asking, how do you make the work easier if, you're studying about the cardiac system and you need to study about that? You can't really make it easier, because if you make it easier, then you might not be learning the right things. The point is to make your sessions, make whatever you're working on a bit more manageable to do every single day. So I used to do like 90-minute blocks, because I thought that was the most optimal, like for science-based learning, right? But then I turned it down from 90 to like 40, then to 20. And then some days I just did 10-minute blocks. I just do 10 minutes of like whatever I could do, right? But I did what I was comfortable with doing that day. And then I felt like I wasn't extremely tired, because that mental load, that mental burden to kind of start the work, it was a lot easier, right? And then doing that, eventually, like your focus, your ability to work for longer periods of time will improve, right? But you can't expect, after coming off of like a summer break, to be able to work for like 2 hours straight without feeling some sort of way, right? So that was the main thing, right? And the thing that I think a lot of people will kind of find most immediate like benefits is by keeping your workload to the point in which it's manageable and it's not like a mental burden. Now, the next thing I think that was really helpful for me was changing the location of where I was studying, right? Now, again, this might be a bit generic, but the main thing is that I used to like study at home, because I thought like I don't really do well in studying in libraries and stuff like that, because I felt like it's quite distracting. And I'm like, if you can do it at home, why would I even leave to the library? But I think a lot of people know, but like if you associate where you're working with like where you're sleeping, then obviously your brain sees your bed on the other side of the room and it wants to sleep. And I actually tested out this theory that like before, because I felt like whenever I saw my bed, I felt sleepy. So I actually took off the mattress off of my bed and I put it out somewhere else. And I thought that was going to help me stay a bit more awake. But the thing, it still stands. The the fact that I was still in the room that I slept kind of made me sleepy regardless. So changing your situation and changing your location can really help with feeling a little less sleepy. And when you do that consistently, right, like eventually some locations might get stale. And when it does, like you feel like you're not productive, just change it again, right? I think we're kind of married to this idea that there's one place that we can study, there's one place we can do work. That's not true, right? So long as you have your materials that you need to do your work with, you can do it anywhere, right? That's the beauty of like technology, and the beauty of just like, you know, how we have so much and we can do anything anywhere. So don't be married to like a certain location, or don't be married to you know, just like a certain place that you work, right? Like if you feel like it's not serving you, you feel like it's not helping you, then just, you know, don't necessarily I'm trying not to crash into this person, and this guy's in the middle of the way. Okay, great. I'm sorry, but yeah, don't get married to a certain location, don't get married to a certain place if you're working, right? And the last thing I low-key kind of forgot. The last thing for sleep. Okay, I'm back. I remember what I was talking about. The main thing, the last one, is go on walks for your break, right? This was actually a life changer. And I think if you add this into going into a new location, this could actually like switch up your life like 100%, especially if you are struggling with staying awake while you're working, right? If you get your 8 hours of sleep and you still like, you know, I tested this out when I was freelancing with video editing, and one of the main things is like I really did not like DMing people, and because that task was so high, I'd usually just like kind of fall asleep midway through and I wouldn't get through all my DMs. So what I would do is I would basically do like however many DMs I needed to do, and I'd say for my break I would essentially go outside, go for like a 10-minute walk around basically around the block, and I come back. And during that walk, I would try to stay as like kind of focused outside of work. So just trying to be as present in the moment, just like, you know, just kind of focusing on my steps. If I see somebody, I'd say hi. You know, I just try to be as focused and as calm in the moment and not thinking, giving myself like a mental break, right? And then when I would come back, I'd be like, switch that immediately and go back. And it was like as if I had like a factory reset. Like my brain was like clear. It was like this clear oceans. Everything was beautiful. And I found that was really helpful because for me, I think physical activity really helps me kind of wake up, right? But as well, as much as it wakes me up, I'm not the type of guy, as much as I might look like him, not the type of guy to go for like a full workout in between my not sets, but in between my working time, right? I keep my workouts at the gym and my working at home. But the walk really helps because I think the greenery, like there's probably some science behind it, but I think the greenery really helps with just feeling kind of connected and just feeling, you know, back awake. And even if it's raining, even if it's like shitty weather, the fact that you're walking outside, the fact that you're kind of physically engaging your body, it just, I don't know, it was just a life changer because for me, when I started doing that, and it's a shame I don't do it anymore. Like sometimes I slack off, like we're all human, right? But when I stopped doing it, I found that my breaks felt as if like I was like, every break felt as if I was cramming more and more and more into my brain until like I just couldn't work anymore. Whereas when I took that walk, I kind of like, you know, like breathed like fresh air, you know, I felt so much more energized, right? So in essence, I'll kind of summarize for you guys. First thing you want to do is find out the reason why you're sleeping. Now, if it's a physical or like a medical reason, get that fixed, right? But if it's like a mental reason because, you know, the work is too hard, or it's like a escape mechanism, then find a way to kind of make your work a bit easier, make your work a bit more manageable from a day-to-day perspective, right? And because of that, because you kind of make it a bit more manageable, your brain's like, oh, I don't need to kind of go to my escape mechanism to get around that. And then the second one is kind of changing up your location. If you study in the same place for days and days and days and on end, and especially if you study in your room, I would say try like studying in the library, or try studying or in places that are still like quiet, get like noise canceling headphones, of course, like you gotta get those are like essential, but study in places that are quiet, but study in places that are kind of different from where your usual routine, where your brain kind of has to think, because you can't necessarily, if you have any sort of like social awareness, you're not going to fall asleep in the middle of, I don't know, cafe. Now, some people aren't that socially aware. Those people are including myself, but you know, that can help. And the last thing, just go for walks, just do a little bit of physical activity between your, for your breaks, right? And yeah, you guys will be set. Now, obviously, there's so much more on this topic. I actually did like a dissertation with the mindfulness on this as well. But, you know, I think the main thing is just find what works for you. And if it doesn't work, and if a lot of people say it works for them and it doesn't work for you, do something else different, right? Because you know yourself better than anyone else, right? But yeah, my friend said I should start doing a catchphrase at the end of my videos. I haven't really got to thinking that far. So for now, we'll say until we meet again, because I love that show from Dragon Ball GT.